got to do a good job of executing that plan, not only during the week, but also, tactically during the game. That's an important part of having tactics.
I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on. This is my home. They're gonna need a wrecking ball to take me out of here.
Welcome in, everyone, to Barely Educated, the Matt Eberflus is Staying edition or episode. Chris, I guess I'll do what I always do and ask you, how are you?
Well, it's cold here in Kansas. I don't know if it's colder than normal by you, but we're like at high of 0 right now, and that's as warm as it's going to get for the weekend. So I'm chilling out, man. But it's a nice distraction from the mess at Hallis Hall, in my opinion. Mess. I don't know. We'll sort this out, but otherwise doing okay. Good to see you, sir.
I wish we could sort it out. It's optimistic of you. Yeah, I think obviously that's the starting point for this episode is Flus. And I want us to filter this kind of through two lenses. I mean, I know we neither one wanted him back, and you were more hopeful he'd be gone than I was after
yes.
the Green Bay game. And yeah, there was some dreadful coaching in that game. But I want to filter through two lenses, the things we can observe about the coaching as fans, and that's all we are, is fans, right? So like in game and over the course of a season. And then the bigger picture, the processual stuff. I'm always talking about process, but I want to lay it out there again for everyone. Maybe someone's new that's listening, or people haven't heard it in a few episodes or whatever. But in season and in game, I think there's three things here that are deeply problematic and why I don't think he's a good head coach. And they're things that he must improve ASAP. Holding the big leads in the fourth quarter. You are a playoff team. If you win those three games that you had a double-digit lead, Denver at home, at Detroit, and at Cleveland. Two of those are playoff teams, and you could have beaten them both. But You gave up huge leads, and part of that's the coaching, which definitely includes the now fired offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy. Someone tell Romo that there's no K in his name, but anyway. It also includes Flus, and I'm thinking of plays like having Justin Jones covering Njoku on the key third down play on the Browns, one of their last drives, right? And it also involves the QB being a total train wreck in the fourth quarter. Sorry for people who can't handle Fields' criticism. He's like the worst QB in the league in the fourth quarter by the numbers. So it's a whole to-do involving all of them, but they have to get better at that. And Getsy's already gone. I think Flus is staying. I mean, Flus is staying, of course, and I think Fields is probably gone. More on that later. But you can't convince me that this coach is the answer unless he develops an ability to aggressively close out a football game that he has a big lead consistently. You don't get three of these. That's 20% of your schedule, as Cousin Nate pointed out to me the other day.
Cousin Nate.
So that's one. Two is, and tell me if you think any of this is unfair. Two is the ramp up to the season with this coach sucks. Why do they come out and look like garbage the first 4 weeks? Stomped by Green Bay, mediocre performance where Baker Mayfield actually ended up having a good year, but that was the first game where you're like, really? Baker Mayfield? And then Fields throws the dreadful pick six on the screen. It's just a total mess. And that same week you have your assistant, your big assistant, right? The DC forced to resign, and the Bears don't even give him a nice pat on the back on the way out. I mean, that first month was a complete disaster, blown out by the Chiefs, who are not the Chiefs of the last couple of years, even though they could go on a playoff run because that's just what they do.
Good, yeah.
You should have been able to at least be in that game, and you totally weren't. And then you blow the big lead against Denver. That 0-4 start is as important as the rest of the season. I know adding Montez Sweat helped the defense and these kind of things, but I am just trying to analyze what he's doing in the game here and what he's doing to get the team ready for the game. And we can't have that kind of start again. And then lastly, on the seasonal stuff, They don't beat good quarterbacks under this coach so far. Jared Goff at home in the cold is the only one.
And Jared Goff is
And
known to
they
be a
got
bad.
trounced by Mahomes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Herbert.
Yeah, go ahead and say
Herbert
it.
cut him up. No, I was gonna say Goff is
Herbert
known
coming up.
as being bad in the cold. He's known as being a bad cold weather quarterback. In 18
Cousins
when he
beat
was
him in
on
an
the
ugly
Rams.
game.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Yep.
yep. They beat him. Yep. They broke him for a while.
They
So
did.
Cousins would have beat him again if they were in Minnesota. That game's won
Yes.
if he plays.
Correct.
They got a lot of dead cat bounces, so to say, when it came to the QBs on the schedule. And then Flacco carves him up in the fourth quarter. And Jordan Love carved him up twice.
Those are the ones
Just
that
own it.
sting the most, you know?
Yeah. But the second they don't play a total um, rookie or retread or journeyman backup type at quarterback, you can pretty much chalk it up as a loss with a few exceptions. So he has to change those things for me to be like, okay, cool, he can be the coach and it'll be fine. Because as it stands now, the Bears did the Bears thing. They did. It's not a happy week because they chose safe and comfortable and nice and all the dumb little platitudes that they think are how you win football games instead of results in a cutthroat business. And the process one is even quicker. You still had the chance to sync up the QB and the coach with this number one draft pick. And once again, you're actively choosing not to. You're just actively continuing to make it more difficult for yourself. It could work. You could hire a OC who's good enough that it's fine. You could draft a transcendent talent and the guy ends up playing lights out and everything is fine, more or less. But you're making it harder.
Mm-hmm.
You'll lose the OC, your rookie contract. If the coach doesn't work out, wasted a year. It's possible to have it be fine, but you're making it harder. And I do think on the OC leaving thing, I'm not going to get too worked up over that point anymore. At least I'm going to try not to. Because if they have a good enough year offensively and a rookie quarterback looks really good and then they lose the coach, that'll be like the first time any of that's ever happened. And we should just be celebrating the fact that we maybe can finally throw the ball forward pass wise effectively. So it's like a good problem to have if we get there. But this was a bad week because they got up there and did all the song and dance, even though they're more polished about it and they're certainly better at speaking than Ted and George. They
Yes.
still said, we're content with a low bar and we like nice people who are humble. And it's frustrating. And so those two lenses make this a bad decision. One cannot be undone. The process one is over. Let's hope he improves as an in-game coach starting, game one next year. Your thoughts on all of that?
I like how you put that it's possible it could work, but you're making it harder. I think that's a wise way to look at it based on what we've seen in the NFL, especially recent trends, that you do want to get that offensive guy with the rookie quarterback. There are a handful of cases where it's worked out with a defensive guy, but it does make it harder. So I think that's a very fair way to say it might work, but probably not. you know what I mean?
Yep.
And yeah,
now you're hoping that your coach is Sean McDermott and you find your Brian Dable for a few years, and by the time he leaves, your QB's coach proof.
Yeah.
It's just a harder way to do it.
Or the who's the Texans coach? He's a defensive guy. And
DeMeco Ryans. Yeah, but he might be losing his coordinator, so we got to see if he can keep it going after he does.
Yeah.
And is Stroud already coach, proof or not?
Right. Yeah.
So it can happen, but again, it's just making it more difficult, and it adds layers of ifs on top of ifs.
Yeah, they say that Flus and the Bears improved, but man, when you compare game 1 to game 17, that looked like the same team, the same unprepared, scared, lost, confused team in both of those weeks against Green Bay. So to me, it was like nothing mattered between weeks 1 and 17 there, because you started and you ended the same way against the one team that you have to beat if you're going to, quote, take the North. Because yeah, Green Bay was down this year, but man, it's hard to say they won't be competing for the division next year after what we saw with Love and their their young team this year, the youngest team in the NFL. Gosh, I'm getting all angry again just thinking about that stuff.
He didn't throw a touchdown to somebody with more than 2 years of experience.
Yeah, so
That whole operation in the passing game, the pass catchers are all rookies or second-year guys. They're going to be good.
Yeah.
Love's already good.
Yep.
We were wrong. He's
we
good.
were wrong.
He makes special throws with anticipation. I think some of it will come back to bite him more than it did this year, right? Like some of it there'll be years where he has more picks, but he's not trash. Like he's going to be good. He already is.
Yeah.
And he's in the playoffs this weekend. So bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And he has a great head coach who's from the Shanahan McVay tree and knows how to scheme guys open constantly, and they throw to the middle of the field, and he does all the stuff that Justin doesn't that drives you nuts if you're actually honest about it. But I agree. They're coming up in the NFL world, and the Bears are not guaranteed to win. They're better than they were. But the other thing that drove me crazy about the Packers game, and the players were upset about this.
Yes.
Players.
Yes.
The way they backed off on coverage again. It was the week 1 game plan, and they didn't do scout team reps during the practice week.
That blew my mind when I heard that. That was Jalen Johnson, I think, who dropped that little nugget. Like, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I thought we learned that press man was the strength of guys like Stevenson, and we had to at least mix it in a lot.
Also, I saw a stat. I can't remember who put it on Twitter, but maybe it was Colleen Cronin, that week 17 or game 17. Sorry, Courtney Cronin. Who did I say? Colleen? I don't know. I went to high school with her, I think. Anyway, Courtney Cronin. She said,
former high school student Courtney Collin, someone.
She said that last week was the lowest pressure rate for Love all year. Like, what are you doing? Like, how do you not know or go into that game saying, "Hey, we got a better shot if we can pressure him," and then not do, and then play soft?
Yeah. That was legitimately one of the biggest beatdowns you'll ever see. That was a 1-score game.
Right, yeah. Deceptive.
I mean, they got destroyed at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And then they get up there and they tell us that they're making progress and everything is going great and it's all hunky-dory. And golly gee, worst thing we can do as an organization when we're turning it around is make too much change. Turning it around from 3 wins to 7? Wow. Let me just throw a party.
Yeah, and
bottoming out was a perfectly rational decision, but stop celebrating losing and selling me on this idea that you've accomplished some great thing. You're still losing too much.
Yep, and bad.
You had a chance to get it right, and you actively choose not to. Don't give me a load of goods. Just tell me you're an idiot or a coward and move on.
And I'm all for getting rid of Luke Getsy.
Decision.
I think it's a good decision to get rid of Luke Getsy, but getting rid of Luke Getsy,
sure, he had to go.
That doesn't do anything to change the outcome of week 1 or week 17 from a defensive point of view. Luke Getsy is not his absence.
Game. Yeah.
Well, but I'm just stuck on the Green Bay because they're the division. They're the class of the division the last 30 years. That's who you got to get past to take the North. And you're not even close. Yeah, you beat Minnesota without Kirk Cousins. He'll be back next year probably. Yep. The Lions are still going to be better than you next year.
It's just the low bar, man. The bar's so low.
Yeah.
Progress from garbage to bad. Congratulations. and this whole thing where Poles loves Eberflus, and he's like, when he walked in the room, I knew he was the guy. What love at first sight kind of nonsense is this? You know what happens to marriages with dumb emotional stuff like love at first sight? They get divorced. Where's our divorce in this case?
Yeah, that's true.
It irritates me because the thinking is so stupid. They should be saying, look, the defense played really good and the players play hard for him. And for where we're at in this rebuild, that's still what matters to us. And we're going to see if we can take the next step and win. And I'd be like, don't love it. But the way they're talking about it is actually worse than that.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yes.
It's all platitudes and meaningless nonsense about how humble they are. So there's my rant. How about the one you enjoyed?
Well, one thing is Caleb Williams going to make you play more man coverage on defense, or at least pressure more on defense? Would that?
I don't know. He seems to want to be in charge. Maybe he'll pull that off.
Okay.
I don't know.
No, he's not. It was rhetorically, yeah. Yes, the rant that I absolutely loved on 670 The Score, Dan Bernstein, who for 25 years I've listened to the score. I started summer in '99, right after we got married. I don't know if there's something to read into that or not, but
Feel the romance, everyone.
that's right. Yes.
We've got love at first sight. We've got a honeymoon on the score.
Yes. So I just started listening to the score about a month before they paired up Terry Boers and Dan Bernstein, and then when their show got rolling, oh my gosh, we know about that radio show, just phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
But for 25 years, Dan Bernstein has been the Chicago meatball fan, the guys who dress up as Ditka at the games. He makes fun of all that. Makes fun of the super fan mentality.
The Duke educated,
yes,
analytical guy.
Making fun of the blue collar. I remember in 06 when they were making their Super Bowl run, he made a comment about enjoying how the Bears were playing white collar football with their more of an aerial aerial attack with Bernard Berrien and the play action deep passes that so he made a big deal.
To be fair, that is what wins in this league.
It is
on offense.
But he just always loved poking the eye of all the old Bears stereotypes of blue collar and take the lunch pail to work mentality, the tough Chicago city. So yesterday, today's Friday, so this is Thursday, he was apparently triggered by something Kevin Warren said about the Bears wanting to win, but with grace and humility. And that, the more he thought about it, it just set him off that, no, the Bears historically have not been about winning with grace and humility. They've won with humiliation of the other team and bravado and arrogance. And he was just going on and getting all worked up about how this is really what Chicago Bears football historically has been all about. Not about disgrace and humility and all that Kevin Warren was talking about. And he rightly pointed back to even Papa Bear Hallis, who Papa Bear, by the way, was not a term of endearment or cuddliness. It was this guy's a mean, you know what. And he would step on players' fingers on the sidelines if they went out of bounds and stuff like that. Like, Hallis was not known for being a graceful and humble coach and player, man. He was nasty. The biggest win in NFL history, 73-0, the Bears over the I'll bleep that out, in the 1940
That's what
championship.
They were back then.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean,
it's funny when you bleep it out.
if you have grace and humility, you take your foot off the throat at what, 40-0, 30,
something like that.
No, the Bears kept pushing the gas down. It was 73-0, and we all seen the documentaries on the '85 team and how nasty they were and how mean they were.
Recording the Super Bowl shuffle before the Super Bowl because they were like that arrogant about the fact that they were going to win, shoving the fridge down everybody's throats just to be ornery and run you over with the biggest guy in the sport. They definitely had the attitude.
Yes, they
Even
did.
Just look at the Chicago landscape. My favorite thing he said in that rant, although all that was there too, was when he brought up Michael Jordan.
Oh, yes.
Jordan's a psychopath.
Yeah, and he especially wanted to crush you and grind you into dust and humiliate you, and that's
you.
Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly.
Sports are cutthroat business at this level. That's what gets me. That's all the McCaskies do is run the Bears, and they can't figure out that you have to be a little cutthroat and sometimes let nice people go to get back to the business of actually winning. And it just makes you wonder what their real priorities are. They're just so content to be the mom and pop organization with all the nice people. And I praise them for not being jerk owners, right? We don't have owners that are embarrassing in the headlines, and they have a lot of players who I like a lot as people. And I joke about Matt Eberflus was probably one of the more normal coaches as far as a human being goes, and he could probably babysit my kids. Right after Pete Carroll, he might be second on that power ranking.
Grandpa Pete.
The philosophy has to change to quit settling and setting the bar low. And Hallis and the '85 Bears, they set the bar high and they challenged themselves to reach it. And part of that was playing with an edge. And and like psyching themselves up by the attitude. We see this with like UFC fighters.
Yeah.
They'd be like weeks of buildup where they hate each other and they're like making this huge production of how much they hate each other because they gotta want to beat each other up.
Yeah.
And then they like hug it out after. So
Right.
we need a little more UFC in the building.
There's a NFL Films clip that circulated for a long time, and it's Wilbur Marshall, I believe, who says, like, turn loose the horses now. They better get another quarterback in there because we're coming. Like, they took glee in destroying the other team's quarterback, knocking him out of the game, knocking the back out of the game. So to hear, it warmed my soul to hear Dan Bernstein, after 25 years of him bemoaning and putting down the Chicago blue-collar meatball fan attitude and how that has to change. And all this time, deep down, he's been one of us. And that just warmed
He's
my
always
soul.
been honest about it the last few years, though, about like
during the game,
people in there.
Yeah, that was the first
I think that's
little.
all of us on a certain level. And I think there's a distinction to be drawn to, just to like put a little bit of a nuance to it.
No.
I don't want the Bears being jerks off the field.
Yes.
I don't want them doing the whole let's show up at the biker bar and try to pick a fight with them all. That kind of stuff is obviously long gone.
Yes.
But I do want the organization to have an edge to it about not settling for fourth place finishes and polishing up a turd and telling me it's a gold nugget, right? Like this is a garbage approach to sustained competitiveness.
Yeah.
It's settling. And the things that Flus does well, I always try to like, okay, let's find the silver lining. Here's the copium, right? Part of the pod.
Yes.
Players played hard, defense mostly improved, but they still didn't beat any quarterback. Those things just don't get me very far down the road of wanting to keep him.
Agreed. I was disappointed.
So, but here we are. So now what? Getsy is gone for good reason. Adam Johns and those people that want to keep him just because he didn't want Fields to go through a third coordinator. I'd rather have him have a new coordinator than a known to be bad one.
Yes.
And Kurt Warner was on this week and was like, that's all overrated. You can learn a scheme. It's not that hard.
That's what I don't understand.
It's just verbiage. As long as you get somebody in the same tree, it's verbiage and like putting a new term to the concept. If they were like trying to reinvent the whole thing, maybe. But still, I don't think Fields is your quarterback anyway next year. And, obviously, I predicted way back a few weeks back that I thought Getsy was just going to be the fall guy and probably Fields.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I said that was the worst scenario because they wouldn't sync the timeline. But I mean, now that we're here, it's like you should still take the QB at 1 and hope they're coach proof. Like you still can't pass that opportunity up. And we'll come back to that one. But what do you think of the available offensive coordinators and where this job ranks?
Well, to be honest, I didn't, know much about who would be worth going after, so I've leaned on what other people have said. So there's, I know Danny Parkins is big on Shane Waldron, who is with Seattle.
Mm-hmm. I think they might have been gifted that whole thing. Like,
yeah.
Qualified coordinator suddenly open.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. He's worked with McVay, Belichick, got good things out of Geno Smith, who seemed to be
the counting stats aren't always great. They're like middle of the pack sometimes, but he has experience, and it's another guy that's worked with a lot of different coaches whose stuff works.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to try to think about this in terms of how attractive the job is. Because I think you're right. We had to vet the candidates more later, and by the time we do that, they probably already make a hire. It's hard to really know. But what do you think of the Bears' job if you're an OC or a QB coach looking to become one?
Well, a couple things here. One, it's Chicago. It's a big team. It's a historic team. Yeah, it's had trouble the last couple decades, but I think the Bears are still a premier job to have in the NFL. On one hand, on the other hand, is Eberflus gonna be around more than this year, or are you walking into a 1-year thing? It seems like it's not gonna be Eberflus last year unless they revert back to a 3-win, 4-win team again. Just based on how Poles talks about him and Warren talks about him. So maybe that's not an issue. Maybe it won't be a one and done kind of thing. But if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm definitely, that's in the back of my mind. Or on the other hand, if you do a good job and Eberflus doesn't, could you be promoted to the head coach job? So I don't know. I keep like going in a circle with those things as I think about it. But overall, I think it's still there's only 32 of these jobs out there. So, but
Not even. And that's actually where I would start my analysis of it.
okay,
There aren't 32 of these jobs because so many coaches have an offensive background and call the plays and install their own scheme. So you're just the assistant to the guy running the offense. How many jobs are actually OC has autonomy?
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
So by that rubric, we're already narrowing down the list of teams. I think if you are weighing the Bears job versus other openings that are like it, where you're OC and you're basically left to your own devices, that helps it climb the ladder of desirability, plus presumably working with the number one pick, or you could say salvaging Fields if they want to do that or whatever. If you're the guy that makes all that click and you're finally the good OC in Chicago, you will have opportunities.
Yes.
So a lot of people think it's a bad gig because of the lame duck coach. We don't know that he's a lame duck, as you
Right.
noted.
Yeah.
And I don't know that a coach who's confident in their ability to do this gig should even think about that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if a coach is really wired that way or if he was, if that's the guy you'd even want. So I don't think, as far as the OC gig goes, this is as bad as some people think for those reasons.
That makes me
And
feel
the chance
better
to work
hearing.
with Caleb Williams, perhaps, is could entice somebody like CJ Stroud has done for Slowick.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who Bobby Slowick was. None of us did anyway.
No,
Now
I didn't.
he might get a gig. He's got interviews, and he's got interviews because of how good Stroud played.
Right. That's right.
And as far as college prospects go, of course, Stroud blew everybody's expectations out of the water. But as far as their college prospects go, everyone would say Williams was a higher prospect, and maybe even May. So I think they can get someone actually pretty good. And I think the other thing we should do with this, since we don't really know enough about all the candidates and they've only interviewed two, and I actually think both are reasonable. What do you want? Like, what's your list of this is what they should look for?
Definitely experience in helping a quarterback, like grooming a quarterback.
Okay. That's number 2 for me.
Okay. Is play calling number 1 for you?
1B more like having actually done the job would be nice because they keep hiring guys who haven't and then they're bad at it.
Yeah.
So 1A and 1B are those two.
Okay.
And I don't know that I even would rank them.
I would if someone who's worked with a few different types of quarterbacks would be nice. With different skill sets and has been able to get quarterbacks with different skill sets to produce. Because we saw with
polls seem to give away that that's what he was going to look for. Because the whole 4 types of quarterbacks comment in the presser, and everyone's like,
yes.
What's that about?
Yeah,
because he can't go. What do you think of Caleb Williams, and then leave it at that? Because if he doesn't hire the guy, then the guy basically knows what the Bears are planning. Mm-hmm. So he's got to do. What would you do with Fields? What would you do with Williams? What would you do with May? What would you do with a veteran? Kirk Cousins, I don't know. These different types of QBs, he's going to ask them because he can't give them all the info about his plan because he's only hiring one of them. Sorry, I cut you off to throw that in there.
But. No, that's good. That's good. But yeah, I think that's where I would. I think that's a valuable thing based on what we saw with Getsy. Getsy could not or just refused to try to work with Fields' ability, and the few times that he did try to, they were successful. And maybe you can build off that. He kept reverting back. So I don't want someone who's gonna say, yeah, well, as soon as we get my guy into my system, which was Nagy too. Nagy was the same way. So can we not do that again, please?
Yes. Not stubborn is another one.
Yes.
Definitely. And I think that's basically the short list of what I'm looking for right there. I think they need to be from the Shanahan McVay tree as well. Because one, it works, which doesn't guarantee it, but it does work really well in general. I mean, Getsy was to some extent, but he never really done it before, and he was with Rodgers, which kind of masks everything. And he wasn't the coordinator. People keep getting that wrong on Twitter.
Right.
Hackett was the coordinator, basically. And it doesn't matter because you have LaFleur doing all the real play calling.
Hmm.
But I like that tree because it's effective, and because your O-line is already ready to roll with outside zone. I wouldn't really want to ask the whole rest of the team to start over when that's already a good scheme. Like the idea behind hiring Getsy to get someone in that scheme was the right idea. They got the wrong guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Agreed.
And I guess at long last we come to well, two more big topics before we do wild card. So now we hate the decision, but we're here. How do we salvage it? Because we are fans. And you say something like sign another defensive lineman, have a lot of cap space still, the defense is cruising, and you draft well, and you still have the incredible #1 pick plus the 9 pick draft capital. And guys, as much as I don't like the Flus thing, I do think they're still set up pretty well here. I mean, when's the last time a #1 pick went to a team that had 7 wins that
Yeah,
year?
that does not happen. That's a good point.
So, I mean, there are still plenty of reasons to actually be, I hate this word sometimes, but hopeful for the future. And you just hope that, there it is again, that Fleece can grow and that the defense isn't a mirage and that they will add a little to it and a lot to the offense. Now, that then brings us to the QB thing.
Hmm.
Justin Fields is an exciting young player who happens to be dreadful in the pocket and a bottom third passer. He does not throw to the middle of the field. His accuracy I saw yesterday is 7% to the middle of the field. How is this even possible? By which they mean a ball that hits a receiver in stride or is a perfect placement on like a comebacker or like in stride on a slant. I mean, it's crazy. He has one of the lowest rates for throwing past his first read. It's one reason
That's
Mooney had a
big.
bad year, I think.
That's a big
That's
one.
real
Yeah.
bad. Guys, you have got to get over it and quit ignoring the data. He's not good in the pocket as a passer, and pocket passing is the most important skill set in this league for that position still. Part of it might be he's too rigid or he's smart, but he goes through it too slowly. His footwork's super slow sometimes, and then other times like, yes, do it that way. And then you're like, Bajent comes in, he flies back there, and like, why does Fields look so much slower than Bajent when he's twice the athlete at least? I don't know. But the data tells me you should move on. It's time. It's 3 years now. It's a different context than last year when we didn't want to because they, gutted the team. You can just do all this based just on this year and see this. So with that said, and you're using the #1 pick on a QB, you had a list you would mention
I
in our
do.
messaging.
I got a thing here
Let's
that
go
I
through that because
put
the thing
together.
on Twitter has been, oh, the #1 picks are hit or miss. They're not.
Yes.
It's not worth the risk, kind of thing. Let's
So-
see what that actually looks like with examples.
Yeah, so I wanted to look at that specifically and say, okay, what were the #1 picks that were quarterbacks going back? I went back to 1970. That's Terry Bradshaw. That's maybe the beginning of the modern NFL, I guess. Yeah, 1970, Terry Bradshaw. Oh, and I made categories. The first category is Super Bowl champ / Hall of Fame with the team that drafted him. So either or. And then a good, and then a bad. Okay? So Terry Bradshaw.
Okay.
Category 1, right? Okay. 1971, Jim Plunkett. He was drafted #1 by the Patriots, didn't work out, but then won 2 Super Bowls with the Raiders. So he didn't win with the team that drafted him, but he did win 2 Super Bowls.
Can I interject really fast?
Sure.
One little issue with the team that drafted him thing is the thing we just said. They almost never go to a good situation, which actually doesn't apply perhaps to the Bears' overall roster compared to most teams picking first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just throwing that out there.
That's a good
Anyway,
point.
Continue.
The next one was
still a good player, at least.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Next one, 75, Steve Bartkowski. Put them in.
I'm going to call that one bad because I have no idea who that is.
Okay. 1983, John Elway.
Pretty darn good.
Yeah, let's think about that.
And by the way, there are people like Chris Spielman, who ran the Lions for a while and was a great player for the Lions and Vikings, saying he'd pick Caleb Williams over Elway or Manning.
I saw that. That made me raise my eyebrows.
Official evaluation, someone who played in the league and has done the GM job. Just throwing it out there.
Interestingly, the one that he wouldn't was Andrew Luck, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, because he had the prototypical size too.
Right.
I think that's got to be why.
1987, Vinny Testaverde. He was okay, but not, 1989, Troy Aikman, 3-time Super Bowl winner, Hall of Fame. All right, and then...
Can we ask Joe Buck about that one?
That's not Joe Buck.
Your favorite Joe Buck?
Yeah. I want to see
I shouldn't poke the bear.
Yeah, that's right. Joe Buck, Tony Romo booth would be... Anyway. 1990.
I would have to mute you for the entirety of that game.
Yes. 1990, Jeff George. Now, he's the one or the type that I think most people think of when they say, oh, first round quarterbacks or first picks always bust. They're thinking of like a Jeff George.
Just because he's got the arm, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Because he shouldn't have been a bust, but he was.
Right.
Like on talent. Yeah.
1993, Drew Bledsoe. Got to a Super Bowl. Was decent. Lost the Super Bowl
if you had a Drew Bledsoe performance from your number one pick, he'd instantly be the best QB we've ever had.
Yeah, very true. 1998, Peyton Manning. Not too bad.
Obvious.
99, Tim Couch.
Bad. Also, expansion team.
Yeah, true.
And injuries.
2001, Michael Vick. Ended up having a decent career. Incredible athlete. Maybe a decent Fields comp. But
yeah.
2002, David Carr. And he just got sacked
Tim
again.
Couch.
Yeah. 03, Carson Palmer, who injuries may have derailed a...
Man, he was really good for a while.
Yes, he was. 04, Eli Manning, 2 rings, Hall of Fame likely. 05, Alex Smith, solid NFL quarterback.
Solid long career. Again, if you got that guy and kept him, he'd be the best QB you've ever had. Even though he's not going to overwhelm you. But I'm just saying, even if you put the bar that low, that's how bad the quarterbacks for the Bears have been, I guess.
Yep.
Wouldn't really want that, though, personally. I would definitely hope we could shoot higher with the result.
2007, Jamarcus Russell. Moving on, 2009. Yeah. Matthew Stafford was 09, and we all know borderline Hall of Fame until he got to the Rams, won a ring. Now he's probably Hall of Fame. Probably a lock for them.
And he's got another playoff shot right now.
Yes, he does.
Had the resume. 2010,
Sam Bradford. No. 11, Cam Newton.
Really good.
Yep.
Play style led to injuries, but really good.
2012, Andrew Luck. Who knows what would have happened had he not decided he didn't like playing anymore?
Like the GOAT prospect, you know what I mean? Like everybody puts him at the top of that list.
Exactly, yeah.
But he got sick of playing for the Colts.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. That was during the Bears game, the preseason.
Oh, that's
right. I remember right.
Was, yeah.
He just up and retired.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah. 15, Jameis Winston. Not bad. But
absolute legend for hilarious reasons. Gonna be the most ridiculous broadcaster ever. I hope he retires and starts now. He's hilarious.
2016,
totally
Jared Goff.
I mean, you can meme him all you want, and there's definitely limitations there, but he's still pretty good. Not like amazing. He's not a bust. He's like kind of in the middle somehow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
Yeah. No, he's
in the division with the Lions.
He made a Super Bowl. He went to a Super Bowl too.
Yeah. And he helped the Lions win the division for the first time in 78 years or something.
2018, Baker Mayfield. I mean, NFL quarterback, but not...
Yeah, probably not worth a number one, but not entirely a bust. Yeah, it's a weird career. Very weird. I mean, you would be disappointed if that was your result for the team that drafts him.
2019, Kyler Murray. I'm not a big fan.
He's good. It's a weird kind of good and hard to imagine it's sustainable. Obviously, they should have picked a different quarterback in that class who's way better, but would have been a bigger projection. But it worked out. Josh Allen.
Oh,
but or wait, was Allen in Baker's class?
I don't remember.
I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head now.
Was that the Herbert year?
Either way, he should have been the one pick.
All right, then 2020, Joe Burrow. Looks really good.
Obviously good. Not a great year because of injuries this year, but yeah.
21, Trevor Lawrence. He's okay.
That was a real mess this year. Really good down the stretch last year. Won a playoff game as well. The talent's definitely still there. But I don't know what happened there. They've got some coaching things, and
it didn't
he's
hurt his
fumbling a
shoulder
lot.
too.
He's not a bust.
No.
He's got a ton of injuries too. He's not a bust. I mean, that much is obvious. So now we're to the kind of the point where we have been for the last couple, where you can't really say yet.
Yeah. And speaking of which, 2023, Bryce Young. Although the deck is stacked against him. Deck is stacked.
Yeah.
Deck. That was
that other guy is a whole lot better so far.
Yes. Yeah. So really, out of all of these going back to 1970, the real only like busts. You got Jeff George, Tim Couch, David Carr, Russell, Jamarcus Russell. I would call them busts, and then Sam Bradford.
And then you got a handful that it's like that would be disappointing,
yeah.
but they played for a while.
But you have far more good to great quarterbacks that were the number one pick than ones that were bad. So I was glad to see that. I wasn't sure what I was going to find. I thought I'd find like 50-50, maybe. Crapshoot, you don't really know. But there were far more good to great quarterbacks than I expected. You got 5 of them that are surefire Hall of Famers. 5 of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, it's still the home run swing you should take.
Mm-hmm. So
you might whiff, but right now you settled coaching wise. You settled for either a strikeout or a single. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like with the QB, let's aim higher at the very least.
Yep.
Okay, shall we pick some playoff games?
Yes, let's do it.
Idiots in a couple days.
Yes,
if we don't already. Look even more like idiots in a couple
days.
There
you go.
We got to pick them all. They're playoff games. So Cleveland at Houston. Houston favored by 2, which means Vegas isn't that wild about this game.
I like Cleveland, to be honest.
I'm just on the CBS Sports app for the lines. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so do I. You know why? Because when Joe Flacco's on a heater, we know what happens.
Yes, we do. One of my college...
Oh, sorry.
I would say one of my college buddies pointed out if Joe Flacco happened to win a Super Bowl with Cleveland, he would have done it with the old Cleveland, which is Baltimore, and the new Cleveland,
That's
which
funny.
is...
Yeah, it's so funny that it's Cleveland.
Yeah. So, yeah, I like Cleveland on that one. Go ahead. Sorry.
Miami at Kansas City, both are 11-6. I should mention Cleveland 11-6, Houston 10-7. But yeah, 2 11-6 teams at Kansas City, favored by 4.5. Weather is a whole debacle here.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be, according to the CBS Sports app, 8 degrees at kickoff, with whatever the wind chill does to lower it even further.
Yeah, I'm about 3 hours west of Kansas City, and it's going to be like -10 with the wind chill over the weekend. So it's going to be cold. So I'm thinking Chiefs win a low-scoring game in Kansas City.
Yeah, I think bear weather is often overstated because, among other things, you just don't get it that much, in all honesty. Kansas City weather is way crazier than Chicago weather. They throw in a lot more tornadoes. But yeah, this is hard to imagine Miami like rolling in there and winning given the conditions. And I don't love that kind of generic analysis. There are also so many Dolphins hurt that you got to take the Chiefs, even though I don't think they're that impressive this year.
Agreed.
But I don't know about that spread. I don't think I'd touch it just because it's going to be ugly if it's that cold and windy. And I don't think I'd touch a 4.5 spread if I was so inclined.
Too many unknowns.
To Sunday. So that's the Saturday night. Yeah. To Sunday, noon. Former student Tim's Pittsburgh Steelers.
Hosted by the Buffalo Bills.
No J.J. Watt.
Oh, that hurts. T.J. Watt.
They're at Buffalo. Sorry, T.J. or J.J. They don't have a Watt at all. Well, actually, they may have the fullback still. Do they still have the fullback? Right. Tim will tell us. They don't have the Watts they want.
Right.
And they're at Buffalo. Buffalo favored by 9.5.
Yeah, that sounds... I can see Buffalo double-digit over them.
I could too. I know Pittsburgh's always competitive under the coach and all, but like, aren't they kind of the team in the playoff field that you're like, I'm not convinced you belong?
Yeah.
Just saying. That QB situation, best players hurt. Yeah, sorry, Tim. Green Bay, the all Teichler Bowl.
Shut up.
Green Bay at Dallas. 12-5. Dallas Cowboys 9-8. Green Bay, Dallas favored by a tutty.
I've never seen Sophie's Choice, but I imagine that this is as close
This
as
is your
I'll get.
version of it.
All right. Well, here, obviously, I don't want Green Bay to win, but
Therefore, we're both picking Dallas, but we don't like it because Dallas kind of stinks in the playoffs under McCarthy, and Dak
they
is kind of
do.
bad in the playoffs too. That's
But
Cliff Notes.
I won't lie though. If McCarthy lost to the Packers in Dallas, that would be hilarious. That would almost make it worth a Packer win this weekend, but not quite. But yeah, Dallas has
And then you'd be
been,
set up for the scenario where Green Bay goes and gets their doors blown off by the Niners in the playoffs again.
which would
I
be
kind
nice.
of like,
That'd be wonderful. Yeah,
kind of think that's poetic, but
Dallas has been
Dallas
too
is
good at home.
loaded in terms of
Yeah,
talent. They've been really good at home. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. So
yeah,
give me Dallas,
yep.
but I think Green Bay keeps it close because they're annoying like that.
I think they cover. Maybe they cover.
Maybe they cover.
Lose by 3,
All right,
4.
10-7 Rams with the criminally underrated Matt Stafford and a bunch of good rookies everywhere at the 12-5 Detroit Lions. 12-5, and it doesn't seem like they're a 12-5 team to me.
No, Stafford going home. This is huge. You know, you going back home to Detroit.
I love the story. Usually the stories sicken me, and I'm just like, shut up already, Collinsworth. This
Mhm.
one's juicy though.
This is
They
a
trade
good
him.
one.
He wins a Super Bowl. They never do anything for 30 years. They finally win the division and get back. And who do they face? Him. That is great. You can't write the script. And I think the Rams are playing better right now.
Yeah, I do too, and I think they're gonna beat Detroit just because they've been inconsistent the last few weeks. So man, that's gonna stink for Lions fans if that's how it unfolds. Not only to get knocked out
And
right away, but to be
yeah.
knocked out by him. So
Oh, it's poetic. And I know this has been kind of like quick fire, like we're running out of time and not doing like big matchup breakdowns and all, but there is one thing here that I think is worth noting in this game. Detroit has a hard time covering receivers that are like shifty and crafty, and like their secondary has been their problem all year. And they get to go up against Cup and Puka Nakua, which seems like a real bad matchup for Detroit.
Yeah,
there aren't that many teams that can bring two receivers like that to your iffy secondary.
And interesting
Finally,
names too.
The falling apart at the seams, Philly Eagles, 11-6, but bad lately. They started 10-0, right?
Something like
that.
Am
I crazy or were they 10-0? Yeah, they're really on a slide. At the resurgent 9-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers and aforementioned Baker Mayfield hosting a playoff game.
Yeah, I'm going with Tampa in this one. I think the Eagles are just a mess. And Baker has been better than I expected. He had a great game against was it against Green Bay? He had a phenomenal game.
Oh yeah, he was amazing.
Yeah.
Like 400 yards almost and 4 TDs, yeah.
Yeah. And it's a
tricky one, right? This is like do you think the talent bounces back with the experience that the Eagles have? It's like, oh, it's the playoffs, time to get our act together. Or do you say, no, I'm not picking a team that's in shambles to just magically flip a switch? I think Tampa wins.
I do too.
Because the Eagles are just all messed up, and there's a bunch of Eagles playing through injuries. Like Brown's going to play through a knee if he plays at all. Hurts was complaining about his finger in the press conference this week. Like he's got a hurt throwing hand index finger.
No pun intended.
I just think that's not great. Not great, Bob. Yeah, give me the Bucks. We picked quite a bit of chalk there, but I think that's where it's at, which is totally never what happens. So we'll be disappointed with our picks soon enough.
It's a great time of year. We
picked one road team between the two of us. We picked the Browns,
the Rams,
and we lamely in the Rams. So that's 2. We lamely agreed on every game.
This the first round. It's high seeds versus low seeds. Yeah. It's pretty. I think it'll get more interesting next week.
Tentative Super Bowl pick, and then we got to get out of here.
My pick,
I don't want to pick all the rounds until we know the matchups, but who you got representing and then winning?
I have San Francisco beating Cleveland in the Super Bowl.
Ooh, I love it. Riding the Flacco hand.
That's right, my
just
friend.
Short. Keep those Browns fans miserable, you bastard. That's great. Oh, man, that's great. I was actually going to do the Browns if you did the Ravens, so I'll flip it and pick even more chalk. Ravens, Niners, but I think the Niners win too because they'll be, wanting revenge. But man, it feels dumb that neither of us are picking the Ravens as good as they've been against all the best teams they've played. They've clobbered. And
they may have peaked
I don't
too
know.
early.
I don't know how I justify it, but there you go.
Here's how I justify it. I justify it by Lamar has struggled in the playoffs, or he has not been.
And I was just gonna say he hasn't been himself in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's
but he's also playing a lot better as a passer than he's ever played. So it'll be really fascinating to see how they do when tested. And I do just think, man, I'm not impressed by the season the Chiefs had. I think their receivers are terrible. Yeah, but Reed, Mahomes, Kelsey, like
it wouldn't
seems
surprise
kind of
me.
like foolish to bet against them.
Wouldn't surprise me. Yep.
Defense is probably the best defense Mahomes has played with.
Oh, for sure. Agreed. All right, man.
I'm going to change my pick for fun, just to be less chalky. Niners over Chiefs.
Oh,
that'd be different revenge game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That'd be fun.
But
I don't really believe in that pick whatsoever. But just not being too chalk. That's all I'm doing here. And I really don't think the NFC has a team that can win in San Francisco.
No, I don't think so either.
So, all right.
I gotta go teach a class, man. So thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate the interaction. We had a few more listeners and comments on our YouTube page with our last show, so thank you for that. And we got some Packer fans and Viking fans actually jumping in saying they enjoy the show. So we appreciate that.
Oh, nice.
Check out our website, buymeacoffee.com/barely_educated. And we will talk to you after this round of the playoffs and with any more Bears news.
You got to do a good job of executing that plan, not only during the week, but also, tactically during the game. That's an important part of having tactics.
What?
Are you stupid or something?
I'm not leaving.
Don't make me angry. I'm not leaving.
I love the Bears.